Today's Antarctica conjures images of a vast, icy desert where only the hardiest creatures survive. Emperor penguins and Weddell seals seem almost comically misplaced in this harsh landscape. But wind back the clock millions of years, and you'd find a dramatically different scene. Prehistoric Antarctica was no barren wasteland. It was a savage Eden, where the rule of kill or be killed reigned supreme. In this ancient world, penguins stood as tall as linebackers. Birds rivaled the most terrifying modern-day raptors, and marine leviathans prowled seas, making today's great white sharks look like goldfish in comparison. Let's kick things off with a creature that proves even penguins weren't always the adorable, waddling jesters we know today. Meet Anthropornis nordenskjoldi, the penguin that time forgot, or perhaps the penguin that time was too terrified to remember. Standing at a whopping 1.8 meters or 6 feet tall, and weighing in at about 90 kilograms or 200 pounds, Anthropornis was less happy feet and more stomping terror. To put that into perspective, imagine a penguin the size of a grown man, but with a beak like a spear and flippers that could probably smack you into next week. This wasn't just some oversized bird, this was nature's answer to the question, what if we made penguins absolutely terrifying? Anthropornis lived during the Eocene and Oligocene epochs, about 37 to 25 million years ago, when Antarctica was still a temperate paradise. These giant penguins were the undisputed rulers of the Antarctic shores, their massive size allowing them to dive deeper and stay underwater longer than any modern penguin. And let's not forget that beak, nearly 18 centimeters or 7 inches long and razor sharp, perfect for snatching up fish, squid, and probably the occasional unfortunate smaller penguin. But here's the kicker. Anthropornis wasn't even the biggest penguin to ever waddle the earth. That honor goes to its slightly larger cousin, Paleontopterus klakowski, which could reach heights of up to 2 meters, or 6.5 feet. Imagine a whole colony of these feathered giants, honking and squawking on the ancient Antarctic beaches. It's enough to make you grateful that modern penguins top out at about 1.2 meters. But sometimes, nature grants the gift of flight, turning one of the most fearsome birds to ever live into pure, unadulterated terror. Enter Pelagornis chilensis, a bird so massive it makes modern-day albatrosses look like hummingbirds. This avian giant, part of the extinct family Pelagornithidae, ruled the skies and occasionally the seas of Antarctica and beyond during the late Oligocene to early Miocene, about 25 to 20 million years ago. Pelagornis chilensis had a wingspan of up to 6.4 meters or 21 feet. That's wider than a small plane. Imagine looking up and seeing this monstrous bird blocking out the sun. It's no wonder our ancestors probably developed a healthy fear of shadows. But size wasn't the only thing Pelagornis had going for it. Nature decided to up the ante by giving this bird a beak straight out of a horror movie. The edges of its beak were lined with bony, tooth-like projections called pseudo-teeth. These weren't true teeth, but they served the same purpose, helping Pelagornis snatch and hold onto slippery prey like fish and squid. Despite its enormous size, Pelagornis was an excellent glider, using air currents to soar vast distances across the ancient oceans. It probably spent most of its time at sea, only coming to land to breed. With those massive wings, taking off and landing was likely a comical and terrifying spectacle. While Pelagornis dominated the skies, the prehistoric Antarctic waters harbored equally formidable creatures. The ancient seas teemed with marine predators so massive and fierce that they would make today's most feared sharks seem insignificant by comparison. Leviathan melvillei, named after the biblical sea monster Leviathan, was indeed a true monster of the deep. This prehistoric sperm whale, which lived during the Miocene epoch approximately 9.9 to 8.9 million years ago, made Moby Dick look like a bath toy. With its immense size and predatory nature, Leviathan was the stuff of nightmares, roaming the oceans as a top predator of its time. Measuring up to 17.5 meters or 57 feet in length, about the size of a modern sperm whale, Leviathan was not just big, it was armed to the teeth. literally. This whale sported the largest teeth of any known animal in the fossil record, with some teeth reaching a staggering 36 centimeters, or 14 inches in length. To put that in perspective, that's about the size of a standard ruler. But why such enormous teeth? Well, Leviathan wasn't interested in plankton or squid. No, this whale was an apex predator, feasting on other whales, seals, and possibly even giant sharks. Its massive teeth and powerful bite allowed it to crush the bones of its prey, making it one of the most formidable hunters in the history of the oceans. What's truly terrifying is that Leviathan shared the prehistoric seas with another infamous predator, the megalodon. For a time, these two giants were likely competing for the same prey, creating an underwater battle royale that would make any modern ocean seem like a kiddie pool. Speaking of prehistoric ocean terrors, one creature proves that the most terrifying nightmares often come in the most unexpected forms. We're talking about Asteroceras, an ammonite that lived during the early Jurassic period, about 190 million years ago. While many ammonites were relatively small, Asteroceras could grow to be absolutely massive, with some specimens reaching diameters of up to 60 centimeters or 2 feet. That's not just a shell you'd find on the beach, that's a shell you could use as a shield in medieval combat. But size isn't everything. These creatures were active predators, using their numerous tentacles to snatch prey and draw it towards their parrot-like beaks. Imagine a squid crossed with a parrot, scaled up to the size of a car tire, and you're getting close to the horror that was Asteroceras. What makes Asteroceras particularly nightmarish is its eyes. Unlike their closest living relatives, nautiluses, which have primitive pinhole eyes, Asteroceras likely had well-developed eyes similar to those of modern cephalopods. This means they were visually acute predators, able to spot and track their prey with terrifying efficiency. But perhaps the most unsettling thing about Asteroceras is what we don't know. The soft parts of these creatures rarely fossilize, leaving much to the imagination. Were they bioluminescent like many modern deep-sea creatures? Did they have special adaptations we can't even conceive of? The mystery only adds to the terror. While some creatures took on the most unexpected forms, others prove that the most terrifying predators can emerge from the most unexpected places. Meet Lystrosaurus, the shovel lizard, that wasn't actually a lizard at all. This therapsid lived during the early Triassic period, about 250 million years ago, just after the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history. And while it might not look as immediately terrifying as some of our other prehistoric Antarctic residents, don't let its pig-like appearance fool you. Lystrosaurus was a survivor in the truest sense of the word, when nearly 95% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species went extinct at the end of the Permian period. Lystrosaurus not only survived, but thrived. In fact, it became so successful that its fossils make up about 95% of all vertebrate fossils found in some early Triassic rocks. This creature wasn't just common, it was practically the only game in town. But what makes Lystrosaurus truly nightmarish is its adaptability. It survived in a world that was essentially one big disaster zone. The air was thin, the earth was scorched, and most other creatures had died out. Yet Lystrosaurus persevered, spreading across Pangaea from what is now Antarctica to regions that would become Africa, India, and China. Imagine a world where almost every large land animal you encountered was a Lystrosaurus. A world where this tusked, barrel-bodied creature, growing up to 2.5 meters or 8 feet long, dominated the landscape. It's like a post-apocalyptic scenario where pigs have taken over the world, except these pigs have powerful beaks for crushing vegetation and can probably outrun you. What's truly terrifying about Lystrosaurus is what it represents, the tenacity of life in the face of global catastrophe. It's a reminder that when the world ends, it's not always the biggest or the most ferocious that survives. Sometimes, it's the weird little pig lizards that inherit the earth. But Lystrosaurus wasn't the only bizarre creature roaming the Antarctic landscape. This next creature shows how nature's wildest creations can be both oddly amusing and utterly terrifying at once. Thrinaxodon, a creature that looks like what you'd get if you asked a child to draw a cross between a lizard and a dog after they'd eaten too much candy. Living alongside Lystrosaurus in the early Triassic, about 251 to 247 million years ago, Thrinaxodon was another survivor of the Permian-Triassic extinction event. And while it might look almost cute compared to some of the other beasts we've encountered, don't let its appearance fool you. Thrinaxodon was a cynodont, a group of therapsids that would eventually give rise to mammals. This burrowing creature had a habit for hiding just beneath the surface. Imagine walking across the prehistoric Antarctic landscape when suddenly the ground beneath your feet gives way and you find yourself face to face with a creature that has the body of a lizard, the teeth of a dog, and the attitude of a honey badger. That's Thrinaxodon for you. But what really sets Thrinaxodon apart is its brain. This little terror had a brain that was large relative to its body size, suggesting it was quite intelligent for its time. It also had differentiated teeth, incisors, canines, and molars, a feature that would become standard in mammals. In other words, this creature wasn't just surviving, it was evolving, becoming smarter and more efficient at hunting and killing. Thrinaxodon was also one of the earliest creatures to display evidence of caring for its young, a behavior that would become fundamental to the survival and development of mammals. Imagine a whole burrow of these creatures, adults and young alike, all ready to defend their home against intruders. It's like a prehistoric version of a very angry, very bitey family dog. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, along comes Tannuosaurus, a marine reptile that shows how nature can take the idea of a sea serpent and crank it up to 11. Living during the late Cretaceous period, about 92 to 66 million years ago, Tannuosaurus was a mosasaur, a group of large predatory marine reptiles. This beast could grow up to 9 meters or 30 feet long, about the size of a school bus. Tannuosaurus was equipped with rows of sharp, conical teeth, perfect for snagging slippery prey. The name Tannuosaurus is derived from Maori culture, reflecting its origins in New Zealand. However, unlike its mythological namesake, Tannuosaurus was very much a real and terrifying marine predator. Imagine a creature with the body of a snake, the flippers of a turtle, the teeth of a crocodile, and the attitude of a great white shark on a bad day. This marine reptile was an apex predator, feasting on fish, squid, and probably anything else unfortunate enough to cross its path. But what makes Tannuosaurus truly nightmarish is its hunting technique. Like modern snakes, it could unhinge its jaw to swallow prey whole. Now picture that ability in a 30-foot-long sea monster. It could probably swallow you whole without even needing to chew. And if you think you could escape Tannuosaurus by staying on land, think again. While it spent most of its time in the water, there's evidence to suggest that mosasaurs like Tannuosaurus could move on land for short periods, much like modern seals. Nowhere was safe from this prehistoric sea monster. But the prehistoric seas held even more surprises. Enter Diplomaterus, an ammonite from the late Cretaceous period, with a twisted, surreal appearance that seems straight out of a mad scientist's imagination. Diplomaterus is to regular ammonites what a pretzel is to a dinner roll. This creature threw away the ammonite rulebook and decided to grow in the most bizarre way possible. Instead of the typical spiral shell we associate with ammonites, Diplomaceras grew in a series of U-shaped bends, resulting in a shell that looked like a demented paperclip or a roller coaster designed by H.R. Geiger. And we're not talking about a small, quirky little shell here. Diplomaceras could grow up to 2 meters or 6.5 feet long, making it one of the largest ammonites ever to exist. But size and shape aren't the only things that make Diplomaceras nightmare fuel. Like other ammonites, it would have had numerous tentacles surrounding a sharp, parrot-like beak. Imagine that beak at the end of a 2-meter-long twisted shell, lurking in the murky depths of the prehistoric Antarctic seas. It's like something out of a Lovecraftian horror story. What's truly terrifying about Diplomaceras is how little we know about its lifestyle. How did it move through the water with such an unwieldy shell? Was it an active predator, or did it drift along, waiting for prey to stumble into its tentacles? The mystery only adds to its nightmarish quality. Some scientists believe that Diplomacerus might have been able to change its buoyancy by pumping water in and out of its shell chambers, allowing it to move up and down in the water column. Imagine this twisted monstrosity suddenly rising from the depths, its tentacles waving in the murky water, ready to snatch any unfortunate creature that crossed its path. Just when you thought you'd seen it all, along comes Antarctopelta, the Antarctic shield that challenges everything you thought you knew about dinosaurs. This creature is so unique, so bizarre, that it perfectly exemplifies the strange and wondrous world of prehistoric Antarctica. Living during the late Cretaceous period, about 74 to 72 million years ago, Antarctopelta was an ankylosaur, a group of armored dinosaurs. But this was no ordinary ankylosaur. Antarctopelta was the first dinosaur ever discovered in Antarctica, and it seems to have taken that pioneering spirit to heart. At about 4 meters or 13 feet long, Antarctopelta wasn't particularly large by dinosaur standards. But what it lacked in size, it more than made up for in sheer, unadulterated weirdness. Its body was covered in bony plates and spikes, turning it into a walking tank. But these weren't just any spikes. Some of them were hollow, possibly filled with blood vessels that could have helped regulate the animal's body temperature in the warm Antarctic climate. But the truly nightmarish aspect of Antarctopelta was its tail club. Many ankylosaurs had these bony clubs at the end of their tails, but Antarctopelta's was something special. Imagine a biological mace, capable of shattering bones and puncturing flesh. Now imagine that mace attached to a creature covered in armor, with a low center of gravity, making it nearly impossible to topple. Antarctopelta was a herbivore, but that doesn't make it any less terrifying. After all, some of the most dangerous animals alive today are herbivores. Just ask anyone who's ever encountered an angry hippo or a defensive elephant. Now imagine one of those, but covered in spikes and wielding a tail that's essentially a medieval weapon. What's truly chilling about Antarctopelta is what it represents, the adaptability of life. Here was a creature, related to dinosaurs found all over the world, that had adapted to life in one of the most extreme environments on the planet. It's a reminder that life finds a way, even in the most unlikely places, and sometimes that way involves lots of spikes and a built-in warhammer. But perhaps the most chilling thing about prehistoric Antarctica isn't any single creature that lived there. It's the stark reminder of how dramatically our planet can change. The lush, temperate Antarctica of the past is now buried under miles of ice. The creatures we've discussed are long gone, their fossilized remains the only testament to their existence. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That a land once teeming with life could become the barren, icy wilderness we know today. But it's also a testament to the resilience of life. Even in today's Antarctica, in one of the harshest environments on Earth, life persists. Penguins, seals, and a host of smaller creatures continue to call this frozen land home. But if you think prehistoric Antarctica was nightmarish, just wait until you see what was lurking in prehistoric Asia. See you there, and thank you for watching.